I found out that Amazon holds 74,347 separate files in connection with my account, and this is that story. But it's the story of why I found this out in the first place that is the most shocking and revealing, so make sure you watch till the end of the video. And if you are concerned about companies holding data on you, I have a solution to that later in this video with a partner of mine called Incogni. More about that a little bit later. So I filed a data subject access request with Amazon under data protection legislation, which gives us the right to access all of the information that companies hold on you. And in response, Amazon sent me a link to download several zip folders containing the 74,000 something files. And whilst it might at first sound obvious, you won't quite believe the extent of information that they hold on you. Of course, they hold everything in relation to your account settings, your privacy preferences, even your advertising history, whether or not you've opted in or out of certain advertising streams, which you may not even be aware of at this stage. But also everything to do with little devices that have a name which I won't say because it'll trigger yours in the background and then start ordering things off the Amazon website. All of these interactions with said devices with a name that begins with A are stored somewhere within the Amazon servers. But of course, everything to do with the Amazon Drive, Amazon Music, gift lists, wish lists, business registration details, you name it, they are all stored on this server. But it goes even deeper than that. All of your Audible listening history, every interaction you've ever had with customer services are all neatly compiled into spreadsheets and various things within this data pile that they sent me. All in all, this data pile is a treasure trove of information all about you. Everything you've done, everything you've thought about doing in connection with your Amazon account, everything you've thought about buying, everything you've searched for buying, everything you've researched the price of, every price comparison that you've done when you're out and about. And it's not just the details of those things that you've checked. Every time you've used the barcode scanner when you're out shopping to see if it's cheaper on Amazon, each of these is stored in the form of an image. Whether it's shopping for something in a local supermarket to hang on the wall my lovely silver play button from YouTube, or whether I'm buying shampoo for the car to check whether this was cheaper on Amazon, or whether it's gift shopping for the boy. As you can tell, he's still into dinosaurs. And as you can probably guess, the vast majority of these files appear to be made up of audio recordings with said device that we interact with on a daily basis. This goes back years, and there are even CSV, that's comma separated value files, where they have transcribed and put into written words within these files virtually, it would seem, everything we've ever said to these devices, and everything that these devices have said back to us. And as I say, this goes back several years, storing your voice and everything you've ever said. But fear not, there is a way to erase all of the history of these devices. There's one option to set the devices to automatically delete the recordings, and there is also a manual way to delete these recordings. You simply go into Settings, Privacy, Voice History, and then there's an option to delete all recordings. Now, on the one hand, I'm not really bothered about Amazon having our voice recordings stored on their servers. It supposedly assists the device in being more responsive, although that doesn't seem to work sometimes. And obviously there are ways to delete this anyway. However, let's not forget that there are some horror stories that are reported, such as data breaches. For example, this one reported in October 2021, where Twitch, which is owned by Amazon, blamed a configuration error for the data breach. In March 2023, this year, as of the year of recording, a ransomware group claimed that they stole data which related to Amazon Ring, which will play a little bit in my story a bit later on. However, no evidence has really surfaced to substantiate this claim as of yet, but if that's true, this is rather concerning. But just think about that for a moment. Everything you've ever asked these devices, everything you've ever said to these devices, whether you are in or out, these are all then stored on the servers, unless you delete them, of course, transcribed into easily readable and searchable documents, which will build up a pattern of your lives when you are in, when you are out, what you are doing, everything you've asked, and potentially recording all sorts of things that you'd possibly rather they don't store. But as I said, it is possible to delete all of these recordings if you wanted to be on the safe side, which is also a very neat point to sidestep to talk about my partner for this video before I tell you why I did this data subject access request in the first place. And I will also tell you how to do that data subject access request at the end of the video. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have a solution to this problem, which is my partner for this video, Incogni. If you are worried about your information being sold on to other parties, whether it's collected by Amazon or any other company, Incogni is a great solution for you. I've been using it myself, and I have noticed a significant drop-off in robocalls and spam and scam emails, and text messages for that matter. Incogni is a service that contacts all of the data brokers that get hold of your information and then resell it to other parties, and they require them, in accordance with your right to erasure under the data protection legislation, to have your data removed from their databases. If you're unfamiliar with what these data brokers do, you'll probably be quite horrified. If it isn't bad enough that there are data leaks on an almost weekly basis with millions of records being leaked online, these companies actively get hold of this information, repackage you, and sell you and your data to other parties, who then try to market to you. But there's a really dark side to all this, and that is that when bad actors get hold of your information, they then try to apply for loans and mobile phone contracts and all sorts of other things in your name. They put you together like a jigsaw puzzle. Your name, your date of birth, your social security or your national insurance numbers, your addresses, where you work, where you studied, who you live with, what you buy and where you buy it from. Then they put all this together to collect all the secret codes and information and secret answers and passwords that they might be able to use to either compromise your accounts or open new ones. When you sign up with Incogni, it will contact hundreds of data brokers and require them to delete all of this information in accordance with your legal rights under data protection legislation. It is all done for you. You sign up and they do all the work. There's a unique link with a discount in the description below. As I say, I've used this myself now and I've seen the results week on week, month on month. Now, even when these companies have been told to remove my information in accordance with the law, they've still taken their sweet time about doing so, but they are being reminded and forced to do so by Incogni, because it is your legal right to have this data removed before it gets sold on again and again, and before, hopefully, it gets into the hands of bad actors, or worse still, leaked on the dark web somewhere. So I can assure you, if you sign up with Incogni with my unique link in the description below with a discount, you will have peace of mind, and Incogni will help to prevent all of this from happening before it even gets that far. Now, as you know on this channel, I would never recommend something to you that I don't use myself. I genuinely use Incogni myself, and I have first-hand seen the results. And as a barrister, I cannot mislead you. So do yourself a favor, sign up with the link in the description below, and now let's finish off this Amazon story. So now let's get back to the story as to why I did this data subject access request with Amazon in the first place. Now, obviously, I wanted to know just what information, what recordings, what files did Amazon have stored on me? The reason is as follows, and this follows something of a horror story that I've talked about in previous videos, although this one wasn't quite so bad as having some random person look into my house. It wasn't far away. So I have one of these Ring doorbell chimes because I have Ring doorbells and I have Ring cameras. However, the chime just stopped working. So bearing in mind that it was within, I think, a year or two, I forget now, but certainly within 6 years, within which I would be able to make a claim for breach of contract under consumer law if I chose to, but that's another story. I decided to contact Amazon, from whom I bought this Ring device, bearing in mind that Amazon owns Ring, which is a separate company, but again, that's another part of this story. I contacted Amazon to say, I bought this from you, it doesn't work, please help me. They said, go through this reset procedure. I said, yes, I've done that. They said, delete it from the system and re-add it. I said, yes, I've done that. They bounced me around from various chat support agents, and ultimately I couldn't get it working. They then said, I've checked this concern and I can see that this should now be handled by our relevant team. To assist you, I'll be connecting you to them now. Please stay connected. Once again, I went through the whole rigmarole of making sure that the wires are connected properly, that it's plugged in, and that the lights were on the router and all of this sort of stuff, essentially checking my Wi-Fi, my internet, and all my connections to make sure that the chime device actually had something to connect to. I responded to all this with a hint of frustration, which I tried to hide, to say, I've tried all those things, the router is fine, the rest of the network is working fine. But then the chat agent said something which got me a little bit concerned. The chat agent said there are two possible reasons why your light isn't lighting up. You're keeping the right button pressed too long. Ensure you're pressing the button firmly and releasing it immediately without holding it down. Obviously, I was doing this because we'd had a long chat about this beforehand. But the second reason was a little bit concerning. The second reason provided was your Video Doorbell Pro isn't receiving power. Bearing in mind that this was nothing to do with the Doorbell Pro, albeit it was connected by the alert system, which would have been set up, that wasn't really an issue. The chime should come on and connect to the network regardless, because we had more than one doorbell. And while I'm neither an electrical engineer nor a senior technical specialist, I don't see why the Doorbell Pro not receiving power would affect the chime in any event. But in any event, that wasn't the case. The Doorbell Pro is wired in. I had an electrician do that for me because I wouldn't do that myself. I had it wired in and it was working. It's connected and I can see it. But obviously, the reason I'm telling you all this is this agent clearly had looked at this Video Doorbell Pro. Now, if the agent had access to this Doorbell Pro, which is a video camera, maybe the agent had access to other video cameras, which I also had on the network. So after a bit of back and forth telling this agent that it's wired in and I can view it live and it's working, we had a little bit of debate back and forth about the chime itself. They tried to push me to the support center for Ring, and I was saying, well, no, I'd like Amazon to sort it out because I bought it from Amazon, not directly from Ring, and they are technically two separate companies, even though Amazon owns Ring, but by the by. And eventually they did agree to replace it. But my concern, obviously, was that this agent was accessing my video cameras, some of which are looking obviously into my home, because some are external cameras and some are internal cameras. I'm fairly security conscious. No one can walk past my house without me being alerted 3 or 4 times. So I asked this agent why he was accessing my devices. I was quickly passed on to somebody else, so I asked them why this agent was accessing my devices without my consent. Now, obviously, to some extent, they had to have access to the network in general to try to establish why the chime wasn't working, but I didn't really see why and didn't even realize that these agents would be accessing my video cameras. For all I know, they could be looking at me through the camera that's in my room that no longer points at me, by the way. It looks at the rest of the room, but I found that just a little bit odd that this agent was looking through this camera whilst I was asking about the chime, which is just a device plugged into the wall. I went back again and again asking why this agent was accessing these devices without my consent. Now, there'll be something within the terms and conditions that says that if you contact them for support, they've got access to the devices and so on. So don't worry too much about that. It'll be buried in the small print somewhere. But eventually, they did answer, this senior technician did answer me and said, the Ring team has access to your Ring products. They will be able to check how the device was accessed and be able to provide full details on the matter. But that was about all they said. They wouldn't tell me why they specifically looked at the camera, although it's sort of connected. It's a doorbell and it's a chime, so in that sense they are connected. But the chime should work by itself, at least being connected to the other devices. I don't see why they had to look through the camera. Again, I'm not a technician, so I can't really answer that, but I just found it a little bit creepy, to say the least. So at that point, I decided I wanted to know what data Amazon held on me. So I filed this data subject access request. Now, interestingly, it's not Amazon that stores the Ring footage. It's Ring that stores the Ring footage, being a separate company. So if you wanted access to the video footage stored with them, you'd have to contact them. But obviously, it's stored within the app anyway that you can just look up by looking on your phone. But nonetheless, I told this chat agent, please consider this a formal data subject access request under the Data Protection Act for all records relating to this agent's or anyone on your team's access to my Ring devices. Now, here's the really interesting point. Obviously, I was chatting to this agent via Amazon, and this agent had access to these devices. But the agent responded, to get information about your doorbell camera access, you would need to speak with our team on the link provided. Obviously pointing me back towards the support link to Ring rather than Amazon. The agent said, I can look into devices such as Fire TV, Fire Tablet, etc., all of which obviously Amazon products. And over several minutes, I went back and forth trying to establish why that decision was taken to access my camera by this Amazon agent, but I had no substantive response. I also didn't have any substantive response to me telling the agent that this should be considered a formal data subject access request, despite me emphasizing several times that that is why I formally asked for the full records under the data protection legislation. But alas, I didn't get any response to that, and I had to file the subject access request directly. There's a link to do that, which I'll put in the description below. You might be quite interested to find what files Amazon holds on you. Everything from every photograph of every product that I've been checking out and about, checking the price on Amazon and all this sort of stuff. Now, I know this video sounds a little bit of doom-mongering and whatever, but overall I have to say I'm not too concerned, so this isn't an entirely Amazon-bashing episode. It's just to warn you that if you don't want your information stored on these servers, you can go through very simple steps to erase that data. And if you want to erase your data from every other marketing company that is packaging you and selling you in the way that I've described, once again, check out that link to Incogni in the description below, and that will stop your information being sold on again and again and preventing bad actors from impersonating you and taking out loans in your name. But in the meantime, I hope you found that an interesting story. Please do butt the like button and subscribe, and check out one of these videos to watch next if you like these sort of stories, and I'll see you next time.